Hello there. I wanted to tell a brief story this morning. I just got back from my morning walk with Conic. Oh man. I rarely do this, but I did this morning because it's one of those things that just really gets to me. That is the fact that people don't put their dogs on a leash when it's the law. When you're in a public space and it's required to have your dog on a leash for everyone's safety and protection. And owners are selfish and inconsiderate, rude, and many other things in my personal judgment. It's one of those things, I'm not generally scared of dogs. Conic is frightened to death of just about every dog. Unless the dog looks like a squirrel for some reason. Every once in a while, there's a dog he thinks is a squirrel and he'll all of a sudden want to chase it. But 99% of dogs, he wants nothing to do with. And he'll, get behind me and on the other side of the sidewalk to protect himself. Oh, I need that coffee this morning. But this morning I was walking and I was frustrated by the first guy that I passed who had a golden lab that was off leash. And as I walked past him, I said, leash your dog, because his dog actually approached us and Conic. Not aggressively, obviously golden labs are lovely dogs. But you don't know, right? You just don't know. And so I said, leash your dog. And he never made eye contact with me, walked right by me as if I'd never existed, didn't acknowledge anything. And, I'm not an aggressive person, so I'm not going to keep on with it. I just was going to make the point, right? I get to say what my needs are, right? Just as he's exercising his needs to have his dog off leash. So I walked around and I was walking down the beach or on the walk by the beach. And this other woman was walking towards me and I noticed her dog was behind her and was not in her sight of view and was also off leash. And she had earphones in, she was exercising. And so while she was walking by, I pointed to my leash with Conic and I said, leash your dog. And she said something like, he's not doing anything. And we continued to walk, but we were having this conversation. He's not doing anything. And I said, it's the law. I mean, that's like a stupid response. Although it's true. It is true, but it's a dumb response. But it's not like we were sitting having coffee where we could actually have a conversation. So I just said, it's the law. And she said, well, then call the cops then. And I said, okay. She said, have a nice day. And I said, you too. And we turned and went our separate ways. So that wasn't the end of it. I continued to walk, and the first guy had walked around the circle and was coming back towards me. His dog was still off leash, and he's carrying a leash in his hand. Why are you carrying a leash in your hand if you don't think your dog's a problem? Right? And I was aggravated from the lady. And so I told him, I said, you don't get it, do you? And he said, my dog's not doing anything. And I said again, stupidly, it's the law. And he said, fuck the law. So there's that. What are you going to say to that? If he's an anarchist, I guess, whatever. So I continued on my walk and I was exiting the park and on getting ready to head on the way home. And I hear a woman's voice behind me away saying, excuse me, sir, excuse me. And I generally don't turn around when I hear that because I generally it's not for me. But I did. And it was the woman who I had spoken to and pointed at the leash. And she came back and she wanted to know why I ruined her day. And we had an interesting conversation. And there's a real specific reason why I'm bringing this out. I'm not just bringing this up to fuss at people who don't leash their dog because it's dangerous and rude and inconsiderate and totally unnecessary and selfish. But she wanted to know why I felt the need to call her out on that. And she said, my dog is very well behaved. I'll have you know, she said, that my dog is a therapy dog. And her dog was lovely. Like, her dog never did approach us at all. Like, didn't even come close, didn't even look at us. You know, he was very well behaved. And when she had called me and was approaching me, she like did a gesture like to point down, and the dog, bam, immediately sat, like super well behaved, like a therapy dog would be, right? So my beef isn't with the dog, right? It's never with the dog. Dogs generally don't have bad behavior, their owners do, right? And so she wondered why I felt the need, and I said to her that my intent wasn't just to be mean or to cause her to have a bad day. My intent was to let her know that her behavior, just like my behavior affects other people, her behavior affects other people. And she's like, but my dog is good, and he's never going to approach anybody. If he does, I'll call him back. And I was trying to help her understand, I hear that, and that's very true. Obviously, your dog is amazing. But I don't know that when I'm approaching you. I don't know your dog. I don't know you. I don't know if you're a responsible owner or an irresponsible owner. I'm operating from like, I just don't know. And my dog is terribly afraid of dogs. And I have to make sure that he's protected. And I don't know. As I'm approaching you, I don't know. And so I have to walk in the park with fear, or not walk in the park at all, when I have the legal right to walk in the park and know that all dogs will be on leashes so that their owners can control them. And she went on and continued to defend her behavior, and she asked me, do you ever speed? And I said, I try not to, but I'm sure I do. And she rolled her eyes. And this gets me to part of the point. The first point. The first point is that this is part of what is wrong with society, is that we want to excuse our bad behavior over here because someone else's bad behavior over here. And this is what we see in the world today, where our behavior is continuing to fall to the lowest common denominator. And what I want to be an advocate for is thoughtfulness and kindness of other people. Now, she does not feel that I was thoughtful and kind in my relationship with her. And I'm not going to say that that's not true. I mean, her perception, however she perceived me in that interaction, is accurate to her. And I totally respect that. And in the circumstances, I didn't yell at her. I didn't give her the finger. I wasn't aggressive. I wasn't mean, whatever, those kinds of things. At least I certainly wasn't intending to be. And so we do have to be able to have a conversation that can be intense without being unkind, which we did, actually. She was lovely. I mean, she was very much in her own perception, and only she mattered in the conversation, which is another point that I'll get to in a minute. But when I say thoughtfulness, I want to encourage anyone who sees this video to think about the fact that your behavior and my behavior, when we're in a similar space, affects each other. And to give that some thought, to give that some consideration, because it matters. We're in the park and somebody decides to sit in an area that's crowded, and they decide to play their music loudly as if nobody else can hear it. In my condo, on the back decks, it's like a little bit of an echo chamber back there around the parking lot, and people will sit out on their back decks and have loud conversations late into the night. And everyone's bedroom surrounds that area. It's right inside the deck. So if our windows are open, you can't even go to bed until they decide that they're done talking out there. And they're not, again, according to the rules of the condo association, they're not supposed to have parties out on the deck. But people don't give consideration that their behavior affects other people. Not that we have to always edit ourselves, or that we don't have the freedom to be ourselves, or to show up in the way that we want. But can we do it with some empathy and some thoughtfulness? That's what I'm advocating for. The second point that I wanted to make is the request that I made of her. I actually expressed my feelings and my need, and I said, I feel really sad. Like, I really see your point. I understand your dog is really well behaved. You're just trying to have an early morning walk. There's only a couple people out here. What's the big deal? I totally get it. I totally get that perspective. And I feel sad that you... Actually, I didn't say I feel sad. I did say I feel sad, but I said I wish that there was room for empathy, for that empathy to go both ways. Because I had an experience too. And it was uncertainty, and it was fear, and frankly, danger. But that doesn't matter, does it? And I said, it's okay that it doesn't matter today. One day, not your dog, obviously, but another dog might be off leash. And if I take your word for it, and I don't protect myself, and I'm not cautious, and my walk in the park the quality of it isn't lessened, maybe that dog won't be friendly, and maybe my dog will get hurt. I don't want that. All I'm asking for is some empathy, to know that I matter too, and the other people matter in the park as well, if there were other people in the park. And she couldn't give it. She refused to give it. And I don't blame her for that. This isn't an accusation against her. She seems like a very lovely person, and I have mad respect for her for coming back and approaching me. Clearly, I wasn't aggressive or dangerous feeling enough for her to just keep walking. And I feel glad. I feel really glad that she felt safe enough to come back and approach me and carry on the conversation. And make the request that she had, that she gets to break the law and do what she wants without consideration to anybody else. Like, that's totally an okay request to make. So I had expressed to her that my intent wasn't to ruin her day, but my hope is that she will, if this is going to be on her mind anyway, that she will give some thought to the fact that other people in the park might feel fear or danger or uncertainty when she's around and has her dog off leash. That it's nobody's fault. The dog's not a bad dog. She's not a bad person. But that's just what's here. And that the law is in place for a reason, so that everyone feels safe. And that's an okay thing in a park. And she huffed off. And so, in this video, I simply want to ask the question, how are you in relationship to other people in the public? Are you thoughtful to how you impact them, how your behavior might have an impact on them? Now, answering this question can also, or getting too absorbed in this, can become neurotic. We won't be able to go anywhere or do anything because we're worried about what other people will say, right? And I work with clients all the time on, you can't control what other people are going to think or say or do, or their perception. You just have to show up. But that's in the context of showing up with this amazing heart and being thoughtful and being kind and being empathetic, and like making that a part of the thought process. And if you're called out on something, which is something I've learned in social justice circles, especially as a white male, if I'm called out on bad behavior, listen. Don't take it personal as if you're a bad person. I was having a conversation with some clients the other day, just this week, about that, of having good intent, which I'm sure this woman did that had her dog off leash. Good intent is different than the outcome. Just like white folk behaving in a way with maybe good intent, but the outcome on people of color or trans women or whatever, the outcome isn't helpful. That matters. We don't have to question our intent. We do have to question our behavior. That is what integrity is about. Integrity, the way I define it, is an alignment with intention and behavior. And one of my mentors in life and business, Steve Wimber, used to say, I'll never question your intention, but I will question your behavior. And that's what I was questioning the woman on. And that's what I want to encourage you to think about. What is your behavior? And what is the outcome that it has on other people? You don't have to radically change anything. You don't have to radically be different, but just notice. Think about when you're in the park walking your dog, I wonder if how other people might be reacting to me. Again, it can ruin your walk if you get too absorbed in it. So this requires skill and balance, but adding this observation into your daily practice can be really helpful. Can be really helpful. And so lastly, I want to say, if you have a dog that you don't leash in public, stop it. Please. You're affecting other people, and I know you'll be affected too, because it's more restricting to have your dog on leash. Trust me. Conic never leaves the boundaries of my home without being on a leash. I understand, and I really empathize with the restriction that causes. And so when I want freedom, he stays home. And I realize dogs need exercise, and they need to run, and they need to do all those things. I get it. It's why they made dog parks, where you can go and unleash your dog. I know it's inconvenient. I know you're busy. You don't have time. I get it. All those things matter. What also matters is other people. So please consider curbing your dog. Thank you.